How's it going, everyone? In this video, we're going to be creating a Tableau dashboard that involves this call center data set. Here are the following questions we're going to try to solve in this data set by creating our Tableau dashboard. Once we have Tableau open, we want to connect to our data. So we're going to connect to data, Microsoft Excel, and then call center. Very good. And make sure we're only dragging over call centers, all we need for this video. So we're all good here. Now we can dive into the first question in our data set. So what we want to do first is we want to find out how many requests came in. So let's drag over ID into text. And we'll change that to measure count. Next, what we want to do is let's bring this up to the columns area. Let's do that instead. Next, what we're going to do is take the CSAT score, which is customer satisfaction score. We want to bring that over to columns as well. And we don't want to do sum, we want to do an average. So drop down, measure, average. Very good. And then we want to do a calculated field for this in order to find out the percent of customers who left a review. So we go to here, create calculated field, and we'll call this one percent of reviews. We'll then do count of the customer score because we want to see how many people actually entered the score. Divide by the count of ID. See this works. Okay, it says valid. Click OK. And let's drag that over. And very good. Now you'll wonder why we made that calculated field. And that's because if we look back at the data set, some of the columns had nulls. Some of them did not have any entry. And what that means is if there's no entry in there, that means a customer did not leave a review. Next, I want to go up to show me and turn this into a table. And okay, let's move measure names up to columns. Move count ID to the first, since that's what we want first. Move the average score right in the middle. And we're going to go to the average score and go to format. And we're going to go to custom number, and we'll leave that 2 decimal places. Okay, looks good. And for here, we'll go to the format and turn that into a percentage. And we're all good there. And let's just call this KPIs for right now. Next question we're trying to solve is how many calls were above average in response time, average, and below average. So let's go to our second sheet here. And for that, we're going to use the response time. I'm drag that over to rows. Okay. And I'm going to go to ID, put that in columns. And yes, we add all members. Or we could instead move ID into the text area. Change that to measure, count. Very good. And for this one, we could do a nice, easy, let's do a nice, easy line chart. Yep, keep it nice, simple. Don't have to make it too complex for this one. Let's go highest to lowest here. That looks good. And we can, let's add the label to it. Text, show mark labels. Very good. And we could get rid of the bottom header since we know what we're working with here. And we'll leave that for now. Like I said, we'll make more changes when we get to the dashboard part. One last thing I want to do too is I want to put in the color. I want each of these having a separate color. So I'm going to go up to response time, hold control, click, and drag over to color. And cool. I'll leave that for right now. I'll make some changes in a little bit, but at least right now, each of the response times have a different color code to it. The next question we're going to solve is, were certain days more busier than others? So I'm going to create another sheet, and it looks like call timestamp is what we're looking for the date. So I'm bring it over to columns here. I don't want year, and we'll go by month. And we see here with the data, it's only in the month of October in 2020. So that's all I'm looking for. I'm going to do it by day. Do it by day right here. Okay, looks good. And now what I want to do is I want to put the ID because the ID will tell me the different request. So go to ID, go to rows right here, add all members, and I go to measure, count, and there we go. So we see something here that's a little bit interesting. Well, there's a couple of things. One, it seems to be that there's not much of a difference. I mean, it seems to be pretty consistent overall. And this one right here, it seems okay. So October 31st, that being Halloween, perhaps they weren't open on that day. I don't really see much of a point for this chart at all. I really don't think this is going to show much of anything. So I for this presentation, I'm just going to delete this. I feel like there's no point in showing this off. It's going to add zero value. Now, if we saw some significant jumps or anything with trends, that would be different. But for this, there's not really much of a point. So I'm just going to go right click and I'm just going to delete this. The next question we're going to try to solve is, what did each call center look like from a volume perspective? So I'm going to go into here, create a new sheet. And for that, I'm going to go to, let's see here. I'm going to go to call center, drag over to rows. We have each, so there's 4 locations. And what I want to do now is I want to go to, let's see here, looking back at our data so we know what we're working with here. What could be the right column to choose for this? And I want to look at it through, let's go by channel. Let's go by channel. I want to see how often the channels were in there. So going back, going to channel. Here we go. So now we have the channel all set now and the columns. Now we have to put some data in here. And that's where the count of ID will go. Go to text. Yep. Once again, measure, count. And okay, we have what we have right here. We have the how many calls came in, how many chats, emails, and web. But I want to put this in a different way. I don't want it as a table. I want this a little bit different. So let's go to show me right here. Let's see what a stacked bar chart looks like. Okay, cool. I think I'm going to stick with this. So I'm going to stick with this. Definitely shows off the right way based off that. Now, there's something, though, I don't like. I don't like how it's color-coded based off the location. I want the location on the bottom and the color code to be by the type of channel. So what I want to do here is I'm going to bring the call center back up to columns, channel to color, and that's more like it. That's what I want. Cool. So let me go over here, right click, and let me go, how do I want to do this? Let me format that way. Yep, that's what I want. Cool. So now I have from highest to lowest. I just like to do it this way. I like to always have the highest one to the left going down. It's a little bit easier to focus. We have everything we need right here. So we have now by the color. So blue, dark blue being calls, orange chat, red email, and the teal being web. Now the only problem here is when we look at the response time that I don't want people to be confused with these colors and these colors right here. So I want to make sure that nothing gets interfered. And like I said, when we get to the very end and we start putting the charts together, we will make sure that the colors are not being used in both. I want them being separate. The next question we're going to solve is, where did most of these requests come from a state perspective? So I'm making a new sheet, put my latitude in rows, longitude in columns, and then I'm going to drag the state into detail because I want to tell Tableau, like, hey, I'm focusing on the state and what data do I want going in there. I'm going to put the ID into the color. Add all members. Once again, going into here, measure, count, and that's more like it. Same thing, we are going to change up the color at the very end, but for right now, we have exactly what we want. And another thing you'll see too, looking at this tooltip, we have the state and this is count of ID. We're going to really quickly go to tooltip, and we're going to change this to just total request. That's a little better. That's more appropriate for what we're looking for. So we're all set there with the maps, and looks like we have just one more question to answer. The last question we're going to try to figure out is, what was the correlation between the customer sentiment and the response time that they got? So looking back at our data set, the sentiment is the customer's reaction, or should I say review, to the request. Some have neutral, some say positive, some say very negative. There's a bit of a range there. We also want to see why did they give that as a review. Was it because of the waiting time? And that's what we're going to dive into right now. So going back into here, making a new sheet. We're going to go to the, let's see right here. How do we want to set this up? Let's go to sentiment first. And then let's go to response time. See how this looks. And let's go put ID into text. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do count of ID, measure, count. Very good. Now, I'm wondering how we're going to show this off. I'm really curious on how this is going to look. So show me. Let's take a look. And I don't know. I'm not really sure about this one. Not really sure. Most likely going to have to be. I'm not sure. Because I'm taking a look at this really quickly, and it seems to be pretty just consistent. I mean, I'm not really seeing much of a difference here. So you know what? I'm going to get rid of the response time. Yeah, just turn into this. And let me flip it. Let me organize it. So it's highest to lowest, okay. And then for the color, I'm going to do this one a little bit different. I want it going from highest to lowest. I don't want them having their own. I want this just to be from highest to lowest. So I'm going to count ID, control, click, put this into color. And that's more like it. That's good. So have that all set up. And same thing here. I'm going to mark the labels. Cool. Get rid of that. And we're good there. So we have everything we need. We have our KPIs. We have the response time, call center, our map, and our customer segment. So what we want to do next is create our dashboard. So I want to click this button right here in the middle. And I'm going to make the size, go to fixed size. I'm going to make this a 1300 by 900 for now. If we have to change it, we can, but for right now, we're going to leave it just the way it is. I'm going to drag in horizontal tiled into here. Drag in vertical tiled all the way up top, so I have my title. And before I move on, I'm going to just create my title right now so I don't get confused. Drag this in, hold off to the left, put it right there. Put in for a text. Now, for the text, I'm thinking just right now, I could change the title if I want, but I'm going to put in October 2020 call center metrics. Leave it just like that. Actually, not call center. And customer. Cool. Leave it like that. I'll make this way different in a little bit, but for right now, just so it's in there, so we don't forget. I'll have my filters there as well. So for right now, I'm going to now add in our KPIs. Let's go in here, dragging up. Very good. I'm going to click it, go to up here where it says standard, go to entire view, and right click by the title. I'm going to hide the title. And I'm going to right click on the title of that, go to format, and then I'm going to go right here, the second one to right for the alignment, and I'm going to have it as middle. Very good. And you see that everything gets affected, which is exactly what we want. Going now to font. So for the worksheet, I just want to show you guys what happens when we do this. So everything gets affected. Now, I'm not sure if I want that to happen, but I probably don't. I want the numbers right here. I want the field. So if you go to fields and go to measure values, it will affect the numbers right here. So go into font. Let's make this now 24. Yep, much better. Let's bold that. And can we go a little bit more? Let's see. Cool, that's good. So we're good right there. I'm going to change this to right click, edit alias. I'm going to just put average customer rating. Spell that out. Okay, cool. And another thing I see here that I don't really like is you see this like little line. Let me try to exit out of that. These two lines, I want to get rid of that. I don't want those lines to be there. Let's go to borders. Let's put none, and that should do it. Perfect. So we're all good there. Now what I want to do next is I want to think, okay, how do I want this to look? I have a few different charts to focus on here. I'm thinking I have two charts going horizontal, one going vertical, and one map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the maps right here over to the left. Very good. But take this, I'm going to float this for now. Leave it right here. And what I'm going to do with this map is I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to put everything together, and then we will make any changes that we want. So we have this. Let's go response time. Let's actually keep it down here. Cool. And let's go to the sentiment right here. Cool. For this entire view. Okay. And now for call center. Let's actually do this really quick. We don't need this. We don't need the legend here because we clearly can see what color is associated with what. So we get rid of this, float that, exit out, call center can go in. Okay, so looking at this, we have most of this all set up. Now we just have to make sure it's exactly how we want it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some color into the background. So we go to Format, Dashboard. And for the color, how do we want this to look? Let's go with that. I'm going to show the color I have. So this is a color I'm going to be using. It's 788F9C. That's what I'm going to use for now. And let's see how this looks at the very end. So going into the maps, I'm going to click into maps. I'm going to right click into it, background layers. And I want to wash out the entire thing. So we're only showing the states. Very good. Okay. And the problem here is we can't really see this right here, the legend. So let's make sure that we right click on the legend. We could edit title. And we could leave that actually the way it is. You just have to do something with this. We have to format the legend. Font. Make sure it's black. Very good. And we can do, let's see here. The body, let's also make that black. Very good. Now we can clearly see what we're working with here. And let's also change up the title of it. Let's edit the title. And we're going to change it to total request. In the middle. Cool. We'll leave that right there, just so people know that the darker the color, the more requests came in, and the lighter, the less amount came in. Now over here to the call center. For this, we also want to have a legend for this. So right-clicking here, going to legend, color legend. Cool. Let's float this. Let's bring this right there. And same thing, we're going to have to right-click, format legends, font, make that black, and also make the body black as well so we can see it. Very good. And it looks like the rest is going to be okay. We could make this, I'm thinking, let's make this a little bit wider. Maybe a little bit. That's better. Okay, so we're good there. I do want to make a couple more changes. I want to take these lines out. Let's hide that field label there. Let's also go into right here, format, and go to the lines. And want to do here, axis rulers, click none. Well, actually, let's go to grid line. This is actually a cool little thing. So in case you want to get rid of these lines right away, go to grid lines where it says sheet. Click the line. Even though you don't want it, click it, and click none right after. And it gets rid of it right away. Same thing, we're going to do the same thing here. So go into response time and sentiment, right click, format, go to the lines, click line, click none. Same thing here, right click, format, lines, put a line on, then none. Cool. Now we're all good there with that. Same thing here. So now we got to change up some of these titles. Definitely got to change up these titles a little bit. So let's go into here, and we're just going to put in total requests by state. What we want to do next is make sure that each of the titles here get fixed up with the font and also the color. So going into here, I'm going to click onto the state one. I'm going to put background. I'm going to make it all white. And I also want to make sure I go here to format and get rid of all the borders here that we see right there. Put none. Very good. So we are all set there. Next, I'm going to go over to call center, do the same exact thing. Go into here, background, make that white. Same thing here, background, make it white. Here, background, make it white. Cool. Now what I want to do is I want to go to each of these titles, and I'm definitely going to make them a little bit larger and bold them. Do that for each of these as well. Can get a little bit tedious at times. However, the more and more you work with Tableau, the more you'll figure things out your way and how you want to do it, and it won't seem as tedious at the end. So let's take a look at all of this. So I'm going to take a look right here. I'm going to go to changes to, let's go call center metrics. Okay. And we're good with that. And for this, we're going to call this customer review. Okay. And we're all good there. We'll leave total request by state, call center metrics, response time, customer review. Everything's all good here. Now let's make sure we switch this up, since now this will not look the best. Make this like, let's go 24, bold, make that black. Let's see. Okay. And I'm going to leave that with no white background. Make that a little bit larger, a little bit. Let's see. Okay, make it a little bit here. And that looks good. Another thing I want to do is I want to switch up the padding. I feel like everything is definitely a little bit too tight. So I'm going to go into here. Let's make everything 8. Okay, go into here. Let's leave the KPIs the way they are for right now. Make this 8. Response time, make this 8. Customer review, make this 8 as well. Okay, we're going to leave this the way it is. Now we want to put in some filters here. Now, what would be some good filters we could use with this? What we also could do as well is make sure that people can use anything within this chart as a filter. So, for example, let's use this, click filter, and let's see when we click Minnesota what happens. We see everything gets changed based on that. So I'm going to go to Montana. Okay. Now, it seems to be a little bit of a problem here, though. Everything looks fine, like number-wise, like that's fine, that's the way I want it, that's the way I want it. I don't like that. I don't like that whatsoever. Let me go in here, right-click, format, and let me go to count ID, number. Let me go to number custom. I want that always being 0. Okay. Now I'm going to take a look. Okay, that's better now. Cool. Much, much better. So we can always use the filters here for what we want. Let's go to call metrics. Let's check this one out. So let's say we want to look at just the call center, right? Okay. Looking at just call center. Okay. Let's just be focusing on the call center for Los Angeles based on calls only. This is going to focus on the chat box only. To be very honest, I don't really see much of a purpose to have any, should I say, filters up here. I feel like as long as we tell people, like, hey, use the charts below to filter for what you want. And as long as we allow all of these charts to be filtered, people can go in here and filter it to the way they want. It's just because I really don't see a point to adding in filters over the top right when we could easily go into here and use the filters as we want. But let's say you're dealing with a bunch of stakeholders who maybe aren't the most tech savvy. We still then want to think, okay, if we have to put in a filter, what filters would be the most useful? I definitely think, looking at this, that the channel, the type of channel right here, is definitely most useful, but then also the location. So that's what I want to do. I want to have the type of channel and a location as my filter. So I'm going to go into here, go down here, filter, and I'm going to put in the call center. Okay. And I also want to put in, let's go, filter, put in the channel as well. Cool. So, doing that. Very good. And yeah, sometimes Tableau likes to be a little bit annoying. As you saw right there, Denver got a little bit affected for some reason when I opened up the filters. So just making sure to double check, making sure that it's the way you want is always the most important thing to do when working with Tableau. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to, let's see, I want to definitely move this. I'm going to float this really quick. I'm going to float both of these because I don't want them the way they are. Go here, float this. Very good. Now I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to place it in right where I want it. Put right there. I'm going to have this as a single value, actually no, a multiple value drop down. I want people to choose. Very good. Same thing for the channel here. I want this going shift, put it right here. I want this also being a multiple value drop down. Okay, we don't need that much room for that. And I want to make sure that I right click and I want to edit the title. And let's see, make sure it's in black. Very good. Actually, you know what? That doesn't, I don't like how that looks actually. I don't like how it looks. Let me go back. I'm gonna leave it the way right there. I'm gonna leave that the way it is actually. A little bit easier to understand. So we want people to know that yes, you can use these two filters, and let's double check to make sure they work okay. And good thing we checked because as we see right here, it's only applied to this one chart. And let's take a look at the other one. Yep, only to one. So we want to make sure we go into here, apply to worksheets, and all using this data source. Click that. Same thing here. Apply to worksheets, all using this data source. Now let's take a look. And yep, every single thing gets affected now. So we are all good to go there. What I like to do sometimes, I like to leave a little note underneath the title where you can too and say, please use the filters to the right or charts below to filter for your data, just so people can understand that you can use these charts below to find the exact filters that you want. Now, the one thing I did say in the beginning is these colors do interfere a little bit. I don't want these to interfere whatsoever. So I'm going to leave the call metrics the same. This has to change. All three of these colors have to change. So what we want to do here is we want to go to color, edit colors, color palette, and let's take a look here. Miller Stone. Let's apply some colors here. Let's go with that. Let's go with that. And let's go with that. Let's see how this looks. Cool. So that definitely is different colors. So we're going to stick with that. I'm also going to leave this same because it's similar to this one right here, showing that the darker the color, the higher the number is. So looking at this overall, this is definitely a great dashboard to work on, especially if this is your, let's say, one of your first dashboards you ever made. There's lots of changes you can be made here, especially with the color, the font, many different metrics, but this is something you can definitely take and make it your own, which I highly, highly encourage you to do. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Feel free to create this dashboard, tag me on LinkedIn, and I'd be very happy to interact with you. I appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on my next video.